I got a question in regards to Senate Bill 71, which is on the death penalty that is coming up. I would like to have some sense of feeling or thinking of where my representatives and senators feel about this particular bill, because it's to prohibit the execution of prisoners that are extremely mentally ill, and to have put them to death, or as far as I'm concerned, any of them, is not a correct thing to do. But I would just like to know where our senators and representatives feel about that particular bill.
The law already allows for, exempts people who are mentally ill from being put to death, and we just had a case, in fact, in which the gentleman claimed that he was mentally ill, and it was sent to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they denied his request for a stay of execution. Well, actually, he was given a stay of execution for a few hours, and then they dismissed the case. But this seeks to change our law in such a way that there are loopholes created, and it would allow more people to claim mental illness than already are subject to that status. And it is intended, and it's brought by the very people who've tried for years to chip away at our capital punishment laws. I just want to state that the capital punishment is very rarely sought in South Dakota, and we have only ever put but a few people to death. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm, however, telling you we exercise judgment with respect to who we seek, or who, I shouldn't say we, but state's attorneys and the attorney general chooses to seek the death penalty, or in which cases they seek the death penalty. I think they need to continue to exercise caution in pursuing that, but I do think that it needs to remain an option, because life is precious, and when somebody completely disregards that, they have to know that there are consequences, and anything we do to weaken our statutes relative to the issue lessens the value of life. And I would also note that 2 of the people who were in prison perpetrated a crime against a guard in which he was put to death by them as they tried to escape, and it was gruesome. And I can't imagine not allowing them to be subject to the death penalty for their crimes, and frankly the others, cases of Piper, Page, etc., Moeller, they were heinous killers. And so, but I would also tell you that nobody would deem them to be particularly mentally sound after having done what they did. I just don't want to see us create a situation in our law in which we allow them a window of opportunity to live out their days in prison. I think one of the greatest travesties is that after killing a 9-year-old girl and committing sexual violence against her while she was living, and after she was dead, that Donald Moeller still lived out his life for 29 years. Thank you.
Two points. First one is the current law. The current law is adequate. It says, now, the death penalty may not be imposed upon any person who was intellectually disabled at the time of the commission of the offense and whose intellectual disability was manifested and documented before the age of 18. I think the current law is adequate. I think if we change it, there's a possibility that someday we'll regret that and somebody commits a horrendous crime and we wish we had the death penalty in our toolbox. Doesn't mean South Dakota has been extremely hesitant to do the death penalty. I think the number in the history of South Dakota is less than 10. Less than 10 in the history of South Dakota. That's 1 every 13 years or less. The other thing, and this is going to disappoint some people, but I'll say it anyway. people that are adamantly opposed to the death penalty are focused on the wrong issue. For every death penalty case in South Dakota, there's more than 10,000 abortions. For every one death penalty case, there's more than 10,000 abortions, maybe 13,000. Shouldn't we start at the big number and work our way down? Shouldn't we put our effort into reducing over 60,000 abortions in South Dakota since 1973? Thank you.